Positive personal relationships. We have heard a lot about that as well. This work is so important because our students, as Dr. Spence said, they are looking at us and they're saying, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. I must repeat that. It's also in my presentation. Douglas Reeves, for example, what does it take? There are some strategies that we know work very well. Large blocks of time for literacy and numeracy. That requires timetabling. Students need more time. Literacy is the foundation for all future learning. And if they cannot read, we must teach them to read, because they won't be able to do mathematics. They can't read the problems. They won't be able to do history or social studies. So literacy is therefore the foundation for all future learning. Bill Gates is now working on his new strategy. He talks about three things: rigor, relevance, and here we have, once again, relationships. Very, very important. Just as I said earlier, I don't care how much you know until I know how much we care. And the Ron Edmonds quote about what we need to do. Very good. Realizing the promise of diversity. This is one of the most diverse school districts in the world. But we must realize the promise that diversity brings. And when I talk about diversity, I mean all the areas must be covered. I was so fortunate to be in the Ministry of Education with a number of wonderful ministers of education, one of which was Kathleen Wynne. And under her leadership, we worked on the equity and diversity strategy, which is now in the schools. And we made sure that that dealt with all the areas dealt with by the Human Rights Code. And ladies and gentlemen, that is so important to me, because there's so many times when we want to talk about race and gender and so on, but we don't want to grapple with some of the tough areas that people don't want to talk about, like sexual orientation. I am not a gay person myself, but I believe in human rights, and if you believe in human rights, you cannot be selective about the human beings for whom you will advocate. I learned that very early in my education and in schooling. I was a little girl in Jamaica when I came across the wonderful saying by the German Lutheran minister. First, they came for the trade unionists. I wasn't a trade unionist and I did nothing. Then they came for the Jews and I wasn't Jewish and they did nothing, and so on. They came for the Catholics and I did nothing, and then they came for me. I decided as a young girl growing up in Jamaica that I would spend the rest of my life minding other people's business. So whenever there is injustice, I will not be quiet. Okay, I'm probably should be finishing now. Are you ready then, ladies and gentlemen? Are you ready to ensure that poverty does not determine destiny? Are you ready? Good. Are you ready to ensure that no student is left behind? Are you ready? Are you committed, my dear colleagues, not to replicate the status quo, where middle-class children will always have opportunities and those who live in poverty are left behind? Are you ready? To close the achievement gaps, to provide parents with a literacy guarantee. Are you ready for that? And I know you believe in excellence with equity. Remember, as Darwin said, it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but those that are most responsive to change. Those who are most responsive to change. We're good? Let us therefore, my dear colleagues, reaffirm our mission, recognizing that democracy is strongest where education is strongest. If you love democracy, you love education. A robust public education system is the hallmark of that democracy. And we are doing all of this for our country, our future health, our future prosperity, and our future well-being. The great anthropologist Margaret Mead, he said that the solutions to adult problems tomorrow depend in large measure on how children grow up today, and that there's no greater insight into the future than recognizing that when we save our children, we save ourselves. Make it happen. Make it happen. I believe that with all the supports you have from school boards and directors and yourselves, this is the golden age of education in Ontario. We believe that. It's a time for reflection and recommitment. It's a time for all of us to recommitting ourselves to ensure that schools best serve the needs of students. I also have such confidence in this school district. I've always had confidence in TDSB because you believe in education and you believe that it is possible to take your students to the zenith of their possibilities and indeed to realize the vision of hope. Remember that you alter destinies. You are creating an enduring legacy, ladies and gentlemen. A legacy given to us by our great leaders of this country, and I'd like to end on that note. I came across a valedictorian speech by Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and he said this: "I say it is to our glory that the issues of race are ended on Canadian soil. There is no other family than the human family, regardless of the altars at which they kneel." And he predicted that mighty nations might well come to us to seek a lesson in justice and humanity. People are already coming to us, to your district, to see how it's done. I say that's a legacy you have to uphold. I was in South Africa a couple of years ago, and people came up to me and said, "Can you thank the Canadians for me?" I said, "For what?" They said, don't you realize that Canada played a key role in helping to dismantle apartheid in South Africa? Did you know that? Yes, they did. And I say to you, Canada across the world is seen in such positive light because of its equity and its justice orientation. As teachers, that's a legacy you have to uphold. And I'll end with Pierre Elliott Trudeau in his memoirs. He said, "A country is not something you build like the pharaohs built the pyramids and then leave them standing there to defy eternity. A country is built day by day out of commonly shared values, and it matters how well and how wisely you build that future, that Canada of the future." That's a legacy you have to uphold. Thank you very much. I hope you believe it. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.